Hello, how's it going? This is Rosalie Reads, and I'm so excited because this is my first ever video on BookTube, but I'm going to be talking about two of my absolute favorite things. So if you love Taylor Swift, and if you either love reading or you really want to get into reading, please watch on. I am so excited. Let's get into it. So for this video, I'm going to be talking about 9 of my favorite Taylor Swift songs, and I'm going to be pairing them with books that I absolutely love, I think fit the vibes of the song well, and just kind of giving you a little mini description of the book. Hopefully you know the song. If not, I will give a little mini snippet of what that song is about. But yeah, so the first song that I wanted to talk about is Holy Ground, because I think that this is a very happy, fun song, but it also has this sense of nostalgia of looking back on a relationship. It's about someone who is looking at a relationship that presumably ended, but they are remembering all of the good times that they had. When you're done listening to it, you still feel very upbeat. It's very fun. And I think that the perfect book to match this with is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. City of Girls is from the perspective of this woman named Vivian, and Vivian is now a much older woman. She's writing a letter to another woman. Vivian is explaining Vivian's relationship with the woman she's writing the letters to's father. It's a little confusing, but that's what's happening. It really goes into a lot more levels than that. It talks about Vivian's life as a whole. And Vivian got kicked out of Vassar, and she became a costume designer for a theater in the 1940s, and it's really about old Hollywood and the glamour and the famous people she interacted with. It's a very fun story. There's a lot of sad things that happen, but it's very fun, and it's old Hollywood, and it's very glitzy and exciting to look at. So if you like that vibe and theaters, I would recommend this book. I think there's a very sassy, fun protagonist. I would give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was really great to read. So the next song I wanted to talk about was Treacherous. And Treacherous is a very, not forbidden romance, but I would say an enemies to lovers romance. And for that, I give you Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is a classic. You've probably heard of this book. It's about this woman named Elizabeth Bennet, and she's growing up with a bunch of sisters and a very rambunctious, gossipy mother, and this very wealthy man and his friend moves into town. That is Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley, and she does not like Mr. Darcy at first, but their relationship grows and changes, and while at the beginning you don't like Mr. Darcy at all, there's never been a relationship. I don't know if I've ever rooted for a relationship so much. I'm not a huge classics person all the time. I think there are a couple classics that really stand out, and this is most definitely one of them. And of course, I give it 5 out of 5 stars because it's so great. Reminds me of Treacherous. I think it fits really well. The next song I wanted to talk about is Stay, Stay, Stay by Taylor Swift. I think this is a very cute, feisty song. This also kind of falls under the, I don't know if I'd say enemies to lovers, but enemies to lovers adjacent trope. There's arguing at the beginning, but it's all about being in love with a person and wanting them to stay and balancing a sense of humor and keeping a relationship fun. And for that, I give you The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is the first book that got me into, I would call them like rom-com books. I love this book. It is so cute. It's about 2 people that work together at a publishing industry, and it's from the perspective of this girl named Lucy who works directly across from this guy named Joshua, and they are arch nemesis. They hate each other, or so Lucy thinks. It's about how their relationship changes, and while she hates him, something dramatic happens and everything shifts, and it's a very fun, light read that is so good. I couldn't put it down. I started this as a just before bed read. I rented it from the library, and I think I started at like 10 p.m. I was gonna be like, oh, I'll read it for 15 minutes, a half an hour before I go to bed. And I was forcing my eyes to stay open. I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning when I finally finished. I just went through the entire thing. It was such a great book. I cannot recommend it enough. 5 out of 5 stars. If you love enemies to lovers. If you love romance, this book is a delight to read. The next song I wanted to talk about is Begin Again, and I think that this song is a little bit sadder, it's a little bit slower. While there is an aspect of romance and love, it feels a little bit different because it's about this relationship that's being watched by someone else. And for that, I give you The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This book is about this girl named Addie LaRue who trades her people's memory of her for her ability to live forever. So she can meet people and interact with them, but as soon as they don't see her, they forget who she is. She lives a very lonely life. It is sad until she meets someone who remembers her. This book is very sad. I will say I'm not a huge sad book reader, but I think that it fits the song Begin Again very well. I think because the book is a little bit sadder, it's not necessarily my favorite thing that I would read, but still a very, very good book. I would give it 3.5 stars. I think the writing style though is also beautiful, so I don't want to critique it. Like 3.5 stars is really good. I still loved it. I think if you liked Begin Again, you would like this book, but you do have to prepare yourself. The next song that I want to talk about is State of Grace, which I love. It's a song about fighting for love and making a relationship work, being a really beautiful relationship, but knowing that it's not necessarily always perfect. I think this matches really well with the book 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book has been all over Book Talk, so you may have seen it before. It is about this woman named Evelyn Hugo who's a famous actress, and she hires this journalist who doesn't have a huge name brand recognition. She's a good journalist, but Evelyn says, I'm going to give you my tell-all. I'm gonna give you my story and you can publish a book about it. And it's about how these two women's lives intersect. They're both very complicated people. The song talks a lot about fighting for love. And both of these women are fighting for love in their own way. I think there's self-love and there's loving, your soulmate and loving your partner. It has two very complicated protagonists that I love. So yeah, that's a book that I would recommend and I think fits very well with that song. So the next song that I wanted to talk about, I don't think is as popular on her album, but it's a song that I really love. When the album Red first came out, I listened to it all the time, and when the re-release came out, I am now listening to it all over again, and that is The Lucky One. This song talks about fame, and it's from the perspective of someone who's becoming famous, but it's talking about someone who was famous, and it's all the things you don't see coinciding with the glitz and the glamour. It's all these different levels. And while the song is very much about, I would say, like the 60s fame, old Hollywood style, I think that it fits really well with the book Daisy Jones and the Six, which is also by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book focuses on the rise and fall of a very prominent band called Daisy Jones and the Six in the 70s. So it's a little bit more of a rocker vibe, but it talks a lot about fame. Something I really loved about this book is it's in the format of a script. So it's not like normal books. You get to hear everyone's opinions, and there's unreliable narrators, so everyone's story doesn't quite line up. I think there's one part where one of the characters gets married, and the one character, when they're speaking, says, oh, she was wearing this white dress and she had her hair down, it was very pretty, and then someone else was saying, no, she had like a yellow top on. That's a very small example, but you see that a lot. You see people with stories that don't line up, and it's about how everyone remembers their story. And it's just about the rough parts of fame, the great parts of fame. I would definitely give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It's pop lit, but I don't think it's as talked about as 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think it should be talked about a little bit more. I think it's great. Okay, so the next song I want to talk about is Red, and I think that this song is really artistic and poetic, and this book isn't as much of a love story as the other ones are, but I thought that it would be good to throw in something that's a little bit different. So I would recommend Where'd You Go, Bernadette, because Where'd You Go, Bernadette is about this woman who is a reclusive. She's now kind of a retired architect. She's very dramatic. She wears scarves over her head and big sunglasses, and she hides from everyone. Her story. And it's told from the perspective of her daughter, but one day Bernadette just disappears and no one knows where she goes. Her daughter's trying to find her, and it's really funny because it compiles a lot of different mediums. So like there's fake text messages, fake emails, just chunks of the daughter's perspective. I think Bernadette is so cool. She's definitely someone that I'd want to grab a cup of coffee with. And this book I would give, I think, 4 out of 5 stars. It is funny, it's witty. To me, when I was reading it, it felt like driving in this car with the windows down, your hair is blasting every direction. Finally, last but obviously not least, is All Too Well, the 10-minute version. I'm gonna go back to another classic because I wanted to talk about Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. And that book is about 4 sisters who are living with their mother, and there's a lot of different relationships and dynamics, and there are love stories and there's heartbreak. It's about friendship, and it's a very cute book to read in a way that All Too Well is not like a cute song to listen to. I know All Too Well is the sad girl autumn song, and Little Women is definitely not a sad girl autumn book, but I think that there are a lot of components that overlap, and I think that if you like All Too Well, you will like Little Women. I would give Little Women 5 out of 5 stars. That's a book that I started reading when I think I was in 4th grade, and then it's one of those books that you can reread, and obviously as you get older you get more out of it, but it never gets old. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any comments or suggestions, or if there's anything you would like to see. I think it's really fun to pair books with songs or movies or albums, whatever it may be, and I've absolutely been listening to Red nonstop, so I thought that this would be perfect. If you like this video, please like it. If you really liked it, subscribe. I will definitely be making more videos, and I hope I get to see you guys soon. Thank you so much. Bye.